resurgence, Lex discovers that Lionel has been spying on him, so he decided to return the favor. Jonathan plans an anniversary picnic closer to the house due to Clark having a party last year. However, Martha had to work and promised to make it up to Jonathan. If you don't know by now, Martha is working for Lionel. Lex enlists a security company to plant surveillance bugs on Lionel, but one of them goes rogue and wants to rob Lionel. Clark tries to fix things and gets Lex to secure a dinner in Metropolis for his parents. At first, when Clark presented it to Jonathan, he declines the offer, but later on he comes around. Once the situation got out of hand at Lutacourt, Clark goes ahead to Metropolis and tries to make it inside Lutacourt, but is caught by the police. Meanwhile, the thieves manage to open Lionel's safe and finds refined meteorite bricks and a detailed file on Clark. Lex contacts the thieves and wants to pay them for everything in the vault, but is outbid by Lionel. Jonathan overhears and hopes not to find out Lex is involved. Clark manages to get in, but is weakened by the meteors. Martha manages to get rid of the meteors, and Clark saves the day. Lana moves out of Lex's mansion and moves back to Metropolis. The next day, Martha quits her job with Lionel after she finds out that he had a detailed file on Clark. The episode ends with Martha hiding the ship's key in some flour, due to the fact that she found the key at Lionel's office. The subplot, little that there is, Lana gets a warning from Henry's wife to not get too attached. The next filler episode, Suspect, is one of my favorite episodes of the series. Jonathan is framed for shooting Lionel Luthor. There were plenty of suspects that could have shot him, but it turns out it was a recurring character's time to be written off. But it was a good episode nonetheless. We continue with the episode Rush. While attempting to stop an entourage raid in the caves, Pete is infected by an unknown parasite that turns up your adrenaline and makes you act out of character. Clark is convinced by Pete to ask Lana on a date, and she says yes. Lex hires Dr. Frederick Walden to study the case paintings and also wants him to work alongside Clark, feeling that Clark knows more than he's letting on. Back at the cave, Chloe is also infected by the parasite. Clark tries to get Pete to help, but Pete manages to use the meteor rocks to keep Clark away. As Clark attempts to reschedule his date with Lana, saying that something is wrong with Pete and Chloe, however, the two walked in, making Clark look like a liar, and Lana gets instantly mad without getting any type of explanation at all. Anyway, Clark is drugged by Pete with red meteor rock, and he joins Pete and Chloe. Clark reveals the secret to Chloe, and they both start to make out. Chloe took it a step further and wants to go back to the talent and do some semi-sexual things in front of Lana. Clark frees himself from the red meteors and saves Chloe and Pete from killing themselves. Luckily for Clark, Chloe doesn't remember what happened. Again, Clark tries to apologize to Lana with a box of pizza and a rose. Clark, you didn't even try to cover yourself this time and say that you was affected by the parasite as well. But I guess it's to draw out the drama between Clark and Lana more. Whatever. Maybe we'll carry over to the next episode. She hires him for a job. Anyway, in the filler episode Chronicle, Lex finds his half-brother Lucas, but it was employed by Lionel to his own Lex, but then Lucas revealed that Lionel hadn't been blind for weeks. So we as an audience, well, me anyway, what the hell did this man solve for those weeks? Well, more on that later. In the episode Fever, Martha hides the spaceship's key again in the storm cellar with the spaceship. She breathes in some meteorite dust, which makes her collapse in the front of Clark and Jonathan. At the hospital, Helen reveals that Martha is pregnant, much to Jonathan's surprise due to being told that she could never have children. The CDC shows up and has to search the farm on anything that may have caused Martha's illness. Jonathan tells Clark to move the ship. While doing so, Clark breathes in the dust as well, causing him to temporarily lose his strength. The CDC finds the spaceship key, revealing Martha had the key for some time. Later that night, while talking with Lana, Clark passes out. Helen comes in and surprisingly takes a blood sample from Clark. Jonathan begs Helen to look at the blood sample herself and was in shock at what she found. Chloe visits Clark and pours her heart out to him. However, Clark utters the name Lana in his sleep, prompting Chloe to leave in tears. Jonathan plans to go to the CDC because Martha and Clark will not make it through the night. Somehow, he makes it to a secure facility and finds the key with little effort. He was almost caught until a sick Clark managed to sneak in on the base and also knocks out a guard. Then they both make it off the base and they use Pete as a decoy. When they caught Pete, they found out that Pete doesn't fit the description. Hell, this would have been 2022. I guarantee you that Pete would have been shot either way. Jonathan uses the ship to heal both Martha and Clark. Helen wants to discuss on what happened, but Jonathan wants to leave it at a miracle. Later, Lana finds the note that Chloe wrote to Clark. Lex illegally gets Martha's medical records. The episode ends with the love triangle deepening between Clark, Lana, and Chloe. The subplot consists of Helen insisting on moving away, and Lex gives her a key to the mansion, asking her to move in, and she accepts. Rosetta is the big advancement in the story. Clark has a dream flying and he ends up in the cave, touching the keyhole in the wall. Clark then wakes up in the middle of the road and is found by Lex. Clark lies and said that he was sleepwalking. I don't know why he couldn't just, super speed away, but you get it by now. Smallville convenience is what I call it. Clark tells his parents that he's been having the dream over and over, and it ends with him putting the key into the wall in the caves. His parents naturally are skeptical. At school, Clark gets a high-pitched sound that only he can hear, and it was the key calling out to him. He gets the key and puts it into the wall and is hit by a beam of light. Clark passes out and is found by Lex and Dr. Walden. Dr. Walden feels that Clark knows more than he is telling. Clark thinks that the worst is over until he involuntarily uses his heat vision to burn a symbol from the cave onto the barn. Clark says that the symbol means hope, figuring that the cave downloaded the language into him. Lex finds the doodle that Clark was drawing and insists that Dr. Walden work close with Clark. However, being a competent adult, he asks a question that's been all on our minds.
What is it with you and this kid, Lex?
As Clark tried to get Chloe to apologize to Lana from her snooping in Chloe's privacy, Clark gets an email from Virgil Swan saying that he's a friend. Meanwhile, Walden finds the key and puts it into the wall and is hit by the same beam and knocked out. Clark finds Walden and gets him to the hospital. It is revealed that Walden is suffering from information overload. Clark wants to go see Virgil Swan, but his parents don't want him to go, just in case something goes wrong. However, Clark convinces him to go anyway. Clark meets with Virgil Swan, and Swan tells Clark of the first message.
This is Kal-El of Krypton, our infant son, our last hope.
Clark decided to leave, but Swan reveals that there is a second part of the message, and Clark reads it.
Be with you, Kal-El, for all the days of your life.
Swan traced the message origins back to its place of origin, but it was nothing there. Clark wants to know what to do, and Swan tells him that Clark must write his own destiny. Clark returns home, and he finds the ship's heart, and he inserts it in the ship, and he finds another message saying that he is meant to rule the planet Earth. Scared, Clark figures that this is the person that he might become, but Jonathan said that he raised him, and it's Clark's choice on who he wants to be. The next 4 episodes are filler. Visitor centers around a kid named Cyrus that has the power to heal others, and also believes that he's an alien, but by the end of the episode it is debunked. Precipice follows Lana being assaulted by drunks, and Clark roughs them up, but it does more harm than good, and is caught by the new sheriff of Smallville. The situation was dire for Clark and his family due to the fact that one of the drunks was suing Clark, which made the Kents almost lose the farm until it was proven that one of them was faking their injuries. Meanwhile, Lex deals with Helen's ex-boyfriend by taking the law into his own hands. The episode Witness has Clark go up against high school athletes that shoot up liquid kryptonite that rival Clark in strength, but Clark outsmarts them by using his other abilities. Accelerate, which is filler, and is a pretty good filler, about Lana's friend, Emily Dinsmore, that drowned many years ago and was cloned by her father and tried to kill Lana. We also get to see how far Lana will go to cover up his illegal experiments since season 1. The story continues with Calling. Being that it's Clark's birthday, he finally tells Lana how he feels and they both share a kiss. Meanwhile, the comatose Dr. Walden wakes up and is repeating the same phrase, "The day is coming." As Lex and Helen's wedding nears, yes, Lex is getting married again in the same season, in the same year, Lex asks the kids to be stand-ins for his parents. At the tavern, Clark and Lana lie to Chloe about their kiss. You know, I was going to save this for later, but Chloe, you already told Clark that you wanted to be just friends, and you know Clark is in love with Lana. You know this. Why still act like it doesn't bother you, but yet it does? Oh, Clark and Lana, you know better. Instead of telling the truth, you treat Chloe like the wife from a Tyler Perry movie. Chloe just needed a love interest this season, or many love interests. Ain't nothing wrong with a girl having many love interests. Power Rangers did it for years. Let's move on. Clark tries to ask Lana on the day after Lex's engagement party, but she is hesitant. Clark steps back a bit and wants to take things slow, but Lana wants to forget the whole thing. Meanwhile, someone broke into Helen's office and stole the vial of Clark's blood. Helen speaks to Jonathan, but turns it around on Helen, feeling that Lex may be involved. Walden escapes and heads to the cave and opens up the walls. Helen snoops around the mansion and finds Lionel, and he tells her that Lex was the one that broke into her lab, but she doesn't believe him. Lionel then blackmails Helen by not saying a word of what they talked about due to the fact that he caught her snooping around the mansion. Clark looks for Walden in the caves but finds Lionel. Lionel tells Clark that the ownership of the caves are now his. This was mentioned back in a previous episode. Lionel discovers that the patterns in the cave have changed and Clark reads them. Later, Clark tells his parents the message.
The day is coming when the last son will begin his quest to rule the third planet.
That night, Walden comes to the mansion and tells Lex and Lionel that Clark needs to die, but is knocked out. At the rehearsal dinner, Lex tells Clark to be on the lookout for Lionel because he has a new interest in Clark. Later, Lionel asks Chloe to have a detailed investigation on Clark in exchange for rebuilding the torch, after it had been destroyed in the previous episode, but she declines. Walden wakes up and escapes captivity and lures Clark to the farm to kill him, but Clark managed to prevail against Walden by causing an explosion. With Walden now dead and his body burned to a crisp, Clark had to pry the ship's key from Walden's dead hand. During Walden's autopsy, the ship's symbols from the key had been embedded into his hands, spurring Lionel's curiosity. Helen confronts Lex about the break-in, but Lex denies it, saying that if he won't believe him, then you should be marrying him. And Helen walks out. Lana meets with Clark again and they both share a kiss, beginning their relationship, but unknown to them, Chloe was watching as she breaks down in tears. As Lana leaves, a voice comes from the storm cellar, calling to Clark, leading to the season finale, Exodius. Clark goes into the cellar and the ship opens up and a voice speaks to him, calling himself Jor-El, Clark's biological father. He says that it is time for Clark to pursue his destiny, but Clark refuses. Lex comes clean to Helen to earn her trust back by giving the vial of blood back, saying that he wanted to find answers to all his questions that's been building him all his life, but all he did was end the relationship. Clark and Lana decide to tell Chloe that they are together right before they make plans to go to Lex's wedding as a couple. Clark goes down to the caves and Lana has equipment set up and has a key made of kryptonite. Clark talks to Jor-El again, and this time Jor-El branded Clark with a scar on his chest. He doesn't tell his parents, but tells Pete and comes up with a plan to get rid of the ship. He figured out that he can use the kryptonite key to destroy the ship, due to the ship protecting itself the last time that it nullified Lana's necklace. Pete distracts Lionel as Clark swipes the kryptonite key. Clark lies to his parents and says that he will meet them at Lex's wedding. Lana meets with Clark and tells her that he needs to do something to ensure their future. Then Chloe shows up to warn Clark about Lionel, but Clark doesn't have time for it. This prompted Chloe to confront Clark about Lana and leaves him, telling him to have a nice life. The kids suspect that something was going on with Clark, so they leave Lex's wedding. Clark uses the kryptonite key to destroy the ship, but causing an explosion. The explosion caught the kids in the crossfire. At the hospital, Clark comes clean on what he did, and Jonathan gets angry. Jonathan gets bad news that Martha lost a baby. Clark feels that he caused his friends and family harm, and storms the torch and finds the red kryptonite ring. Despite everything that happened between Lex and Helen, Helen walks down the aisle and marries Lex. As Clark gears up to leave, Lana tries to convince Clark to stay by telling him that she loves him. He says he loves her back, but it doesn't stop him from slipping on the ring, and he then asks Lana to come with him, but she declines. On his way to his honeymoon, Lex wakes up and finds Helen and the pilot gone. Chloe decides to take Lana upon his offer. The season ends with Clark riding away to Metropolis, with Jor-El still in his head saying that he will obey him. This season is a step up and started to dive more into the Superman mythology. This season really cemented my love for the series, but it's not my favorite season overall. But we will get to that much later. There were a lot more filler episodes this season, especially the final four leading up to the finale. As we dive more into the cast's backstories, we get a better understanding on why they are the way they are. Pete has changed, having learned Clark's secret. He even stepped up in helping Clark sack Media Freaks of the Week and helped solve who framed Jonathan back in the episode Suspect. He knows the risk and responsibility of holding Clark's secret, but is often scared that he will slip up and say something to the wrong person. This will be explored more in the next season. Chloe's whole arc consists of Clark and Lana tiptoeing around her to spare her feelings, on the grounds of what she and Clark already agreed upon, that they would just be friends. She's known since season 1 that Clark was in love with Lana, but she kept acting like it was new to her every episode. When she poured her heart out to Clark when he was sick and he uttered Lana's name, she should have just accepted it then, that her and Clark are just good friends. But clearly, judging by her actions, she was lying the entire time. Like, Chloe, if you really wanted Clark, then you should have fought for him. Just like Clark did for Lana. She could have done the same. Her final scene of the season with Lionel, that decision to accept Lana's offer to look into Clark's life, was out of anger. Will she regret it? We'll just have to wait and see. Martha and Jonathan mostly went through deciding with helping Clark find out about his origins and are able to accept the consequences of what comes with it. But they supported Clark nonetheless. I don't know why Martha kept the secret of their baby from Clark and Jonathan. Maybe she didn't want to jinx it because she was told way before the series started that she couldn't have children. This was due to the healing abilities of the ship. Now, a long time ago, when the season first aired, was that I thought that the baby would have been a baby girl named Kara, and she would have probably been Smallville's version of Supergirl. I know it was a stupid assumption, but I was 14 years old at the time, so cut me a little slack. Surprised that I remember that. Martha does show that she had a knack for the business world, and she took a job to work for Lionel to help out with the bills, but the job put a strain on her marriage, due to Lionel having feelings for her. Now, with Jonathan, we always knew that he had a history with the Luthers, preferably Lionel. Jonathan's back was against the wall during Clark's adoption and convinced the Rosses to sell their company, and Lionel had them evicted, which Jonathan felt guilty about for a long time. The love of his family often pushes Jonathan to do or ask Clark to perform outlandish acts, but it's all to protect the family. But if I can be honest, and this is my opinion, but folks be trying Jonathan's last nerve. You should see the figurative vein pops out of his neck when Lex comes over for Clark, and you already know how he feels about Lionel and Helen with Clark's blood, and among other things. But Jonathan, at the end of the day, is still a good man. I don't care what anybody says. Lionel was bumped to a series regular, and man, he did not disappoint. From the time he was blind up until he regained his sight, he was a master manipulator and often undermines Lex when he tries to get a one-up on him. It's still unknown of what he saw once he regained his sight. He might have stumbled upon Clark's secret, but it was never clarified. He does have feelings for Martha, given what we see how he treats her compared to others. I like how he doesn't care that the people of Smallville hate him. He values their hatred, stating that the people are at their weakest when they're angry. I don't care how powerful certain villains are in the comic book world and the movie world. Lionel Luthor is a force to be reckoned with. He does a lot to cover his tracks, despite on what people know. He took interest in the case when Lex took interest in the case, and what he learned from Dr. Walden, we will learn more of what Lionel's endgame is or what he wants next season. Lex has grown closer to people of Smallville and wants to help the people. However, his curiosity for the unexplained often gets the best of him. His relationship with Clark grows as he has Clark to be his best man twice. He does see Clark as a little brother that he never has, prompting his excitement when he thought that Clark was his long-lost half-brother, but Clark knows that that's not possible due to his alien nature and all. But it was good of Lex to feel that, Clark could be his younger brother, that he can help mentor, help him out with women and whatnot. I mean, he still does that, but it would have been more cool to him that they would have shared some chromosomes and DNA and whatnot. But he does have Lucas, his half-brother, from that crazy woman Rachel. But Lucas was never heard from again. or he probably was killed off screen. I don't know. There was a time to where Clark and Lex's friendship was put to the test in the episode Suspect when Jonathan was framed on shooting Lionel. They were both on edge to where that Lex's father could die and Clark's father could go to jail for the rest of his life. He often puts his heart out to the wrong woman and jumps the gun and marries them. Like, no one asked about his state of mind on getting married twice in the same year. Lex can be a simp when he's not going up against his father and often putting his friends in danger. He often tries to close in on Clark's secret even though Clark keeps throwing him off the trail. I wonder how he knew about the blood vial in Helen's office. She didn't even hide it around him. I wonder if someone in the hospital told him through bribery. He did come clean because he really loves Helen, feeling that he broke the cycle of lies and secrets that made him the person that he is today. To go against that for the woman he loves shows growth, even though he's still the younger version of the man that he will become. From the audience point of view, we can be proud of him or the choices he makes or what he's willing to do to sacrifice himself and go out his way for his friends. But karma is a bitch and we will learn Lex's fate come next season. Lana has become more independent this season, for running the talent, basically on her own, all while still being in school, and struggling with her feelings for Clark. When Lana found out about her biological father, Henry Small, and they got to know one another and things were going great until his jealous-ass wife wants to get a divorce, all because that's all Henry talked about was Lana. Hey, I guess Lana has that effect on people. But regardless, Henry's wife is a grown-ass woman. She really thought her husband was going to leave her for her already independent teenage daughter. Get a goddamn grip, lady. But Lana takes the high road and made the decision that it's best for her and Henry not to spend time with each other for a while. And Henry reluctantly agrees. That was a cowardly move on Henry's part, if you ask me. If that were me, I would have said, nah, if my wife got such a problem of me getting to know my teenage daughter that I did not know about, then she could leave. There's the door. But hey, that's just me. I also felt like, as mature as that was for Lana to do, that's not for a teenage girl to make. And for Henry to just go along with it was stupid. But I guess the writers felt like Henry served his purpose and wrote him out the series because this is the last time Henry was seen or mentioned again. Lana's character developed more when she was assaulted by one of the drunks and she learned self-defense from Lex. These years was a turning point for her to finally close the door on Whitney and pursue her feelings for Clark, and also tiptoe around Chloe. But I would have done that if I were Lana. Like I said with Chloe, if you want your man, then go get him. Don't let a person like Chloe that plays games and say that let's be friends, but still have feelings for a person to get in your way. Chloe was just creating unnecessary drama, if you ask me. Lana started to have distrust for Clark ever since the tornado. He's been evasive and unable to open up to her, but in spite of all that, she still loved him and still wanted to be with him. I guess love does conquer all. Clark learns more of his origins this season, the discovery of the caves, learning the legend of Amon, then downloaded with the Kryptonian language. Clark learns more when he visited Dr. Virgil Swan, played by Christopher Reeves. I felt like this was a proper passing of the torch from one Superman to another. So that was nicely done. However, once he learned that he was supposed to rule humanity, he was doing everything he can for the rest of the season to go against his proposed destiny, placed on him by his birth father, Jor-El, played by Terrence Stamp, another original Superman movie alumni that played one of Superman's greatest enemies, General Zod. Naturally, Clark goes against Jor-El's wishes because Clark accepted that even though he's from Krypton, Earth is his home. Clark has more trouble than ever to keep his secret because of his origins and his miraculous saves for the people he cared for and strangers. His nature to save people seems to outweigh his need to keep his secret. However, by the end of the season, he had jumped the gun and destroyed the ship with the kryptonite key, making things worse and costing Martha her baby. Feeling that all he did was hurt the people he cared for, like any other teen drama, he runs away. To give him more incentive, he gets the red kryptonite ring and puts it on. Now, what I notice about red kryptonite, or how Clark treats red kryptonite, is when someone else slips it to him, it's like, oh, I've been drugged with red kryptonite. You know, it's a fun way of like saying like, oh, a Kryptonian like Clark, he can't get affected by alcohol or any other drugs out there. So I guess Red Kryptonite is the closest to make Clark act out of character. Because you know how folks get drunk and get under the influence. They either be mellowed out, act out of character, or fight or whatever. But I thought that was neat for the writers and for Clark to say. Clark made the mature but risky decision to tell Pete his secret. But if I could be honest about it, if Clark wasn't back into a corner, he would have never shared his secret with Pete. Just saying. Also, when I learned in later seasons that when people learn about Clark's secret, either they stumble upon it or Clark will have no choice but to tell them because they're getting closer to the truth. Now, this excludes the ones who have kryptonite powers, and Clark trusts them enough to learn his secret because in a way they're just like him, minus the psychopathic traits or whatnot, because who's going to believe them once they get caught and get thrown in Belle Reef? And we also have the ones that obtain their powers outside of Smallville, but we'll get into that much later. Clark's love for Lana grew, and we all want him to get the girl, but his love for her also gets him into trouble. For example, he often gets into arguments with Chloe every time when Chloe and Lana get into a disagreement, and Clark plays the middleman and goes and checks Chloe every time. And then Chloe, even though she gives some good argument points on how Clark is acting about Lana, whenever something's going on with Lana, Clark always comes for the save. Chloe ends up apologizing to Lana by the end of the episode. My wife has watched this show with me from season 1 this year, and I have given her some spoilers from the later seasons, but she doesn't care for spoilers. She still gets surprised as the stuff unfolds when she watches it for the first time. I don't know how people are like that, but it amazes me. She states that once Clark gets the girl, or gets Lana, of course, then what? You must have a plan after you get the girl of your dreams. Because we've seen in season 1 that you had fantasized about her plenty of times, but you don't see anything past that, of course. Because once you kiss and you declare your love for her, that's it. You're in a relationship. And it's no picnic. You gotta work at it. But this could be my wife just reading into it too much. But it was funny to hear, and I thought I would share. When Clark was leaving, he had asked Lana to come with him. I know she wanted to go with him because she does love him, but she decided to stay. I had a question that vexed me for years. What the hell Clark was going to do once he got to Metropolis? This is what I thought before I seen what actually happened. There wasn't a lot of media freaks of the week that Clark had to deal with, and that shows that the show is growing. Like I said in the first episode, you don't want to have that repetitive school kid with powers gets revenge from bullies. There were more others with more motivations like money, scholarships, or control. There are some media freaks that didn't want to be bothered and just live their lives. There were certain situations that Clark had to deal with outside of the media affected of the week, like corporate mutiny, attempted murder, insanity, disease, and loss. Some of it was filler, but the episodes were good to say the least. But what's in store for Clark and the rest of the characters of Smallville? We will find out as more Superman mythology will be revealed, friendships will be tested, iconic names from the DC Universe will be mentioned as we return with Smallville Season 3. If there's a show you want me to feature in Burstjones Retrospect, please let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to take a look at my other segments, like Burstjones Memoirs, a series of where I tell stories in my life while playing video games. Another is Burst Talk, a series of where I talk about various forms of media. Burst Limit Gaming is to where I would broadcast playing a game on Twitch, and then once that live broadcast is done, I will upload it on YouTube the next day. But if you want to catch the live broadcast, I will post a link in the description below. Burst Limit Vlogs is just what it is. Just short little vlogs of what I do in my life or whatnot, why I'm not recording videos or whatever. But it's just a segment to push out content in the meantime. But I will check out my first 2 videos. I'm sorry, like I said, I don't do a lot of Burst Limit vlogs, but check out the first 2 is number 1, the Bridgerton experience. that Netflix series that my wife watches. I never seen it, but the experience was cool. Like, I will check it out once it comes back to Atlanta. And also, I did one for my son's birthday, for his 3rd birthday. It was space theme, and he wanted a lot of Buzz Lightyear stuff. But I'm getting sidetracked here. Burst Talk Live is a podcast on while we talk about Power Rangers, comics, movies, etc. The live can go either way, so it can be very long or very short. So be sure to check that out. I also review current TV shows, movies, comics, and anime. So with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you all next time.